Today on the CTV News at 5, border guards make the largest handgun seizure ever at the Coots Crossing. Plus, how victims of residential school abuse are coming together to heal. And why some Elton John fans are giving away the widely coveted tickets.
CTV News with Jackie Scantlebury.
Good afternoon. A Florida man is facing weapons charges after a huge cache of rifles, handguns, and other weapons were found hidden in his pickup truck. The man, who was on his way to Alaska, was entering Canada through the Coots border crossing yesterday when officers conducted a secondary search of his vehicle. Altogether, there were 75 firearms, including 48 handguns. It's the largest handgun seizure in the history of the Port of Coots. Officers also discovered a blowgun, a pistol crossbow, and 12 high-capacity magazines. The Canada Border Services Agency says when the driver was first questioned, he declared that he didn't have any firearms. 54-year-old George Foster of Florida was arrested and turned over to RCMP. He's facing 10 charges, but officials say other charges are pending. He's scheduled to appear in Lethbridge Provincial Court tomorrow. The Blood Tribe is looking at ways of gathering and preserving the stories of residential Indian school survivors. During the 1900s, several thousand Blood Tribe children were taken from their parents and then placed in residential schools. This week, former students and their descendants have been gathering in Lethbridge, where they've been learning, planning, and working to ensure their stories will never be forgotten. Terry Vogt reports.
Slot Indian Reserve number 148.
This two-day conference is focusing on an ugly part of Canada's past. At the peak of the Indian residential school system, there were 80 schools operating in Canada, including 2 on the Blood Reserve. Over more than half a century, thousands of children were torn from their families and raised in residential schools.
It was very hard for us at the time.
For survivors like John J. Healy, talking about what happened and creating awareness is critical to healing and moving forward.
I had to cope with it and I had to live with it, and I'm 71 years old now and it's still back in my mind, you know.
It's not your fault. We're not blaming anybody. It was just the fact that the nuns and the priests have no parenting because they didn't have any children. They didn't have to care about us because we're strangers. We couldn't speak English. We couldn't understand what they wanted from us.
As part of the Truth and Reconciliation settlement with the federal government, the Blood Tribe has been approved for $300,000 to fund 7 projects that will preserve the legacy of residential schools for future generations.
I think it's a learning process for the youth, our youth here on the Blood Reserve. I think they need to be informed about what happened back then in our generation.
It was sort of a silent killer of our people, you know. I think, you know, that the wrongs and the hurts and the despair of our people continued through that time.
Chief Charles Weaselhead, who spent 11 years in a residential school, says this conference is important because it's the survivors who should be the ones to determine how their experiences will be preserved. Terry Vogt, CTV News, Lethbridge.
Among the projects under consideration are history books, a monument, a time capsule, and an oral history project. The Blood Tribe is hoping most of the commemoration projects can be completed by early next year. Teens from across Alberta are gathering in Brockett to talk about some of the tough issues that they face every day. One being the discrimination they face both on and off the reserve. Stephanie Massicott has the story.
We're trying to bring back the old ways to have honor and respect, you know, to live by that.
Community leaders from across Alberta are sharing their knowledge with the youth in hopes to break barriers by connecting them with positive support systems within the community.
Showing them who our leaders are, and you know, those are the people that they want to watch and use as role models in our community.
This 2-day seminar is jam-packed with activities for both Native and non-Native youth. while stressing the importance of education and following your dreams. The theme for this year's forum is bringing youth together. The youth have traveled from as far as Hobbema, Siksika First Nation, Blood Tribe, Medicine Hat, Lethbridge, and Fort Macleod.
I actually learned something from here too. It's my self-esteem and how to respect others.
Although the main focus is issues teens deal with today, the forum has some students looking into their future.
I think it would be beneficial if all the youth in Alberta got together as a whole, so that in the future, when we start becoming leaders, we can start to deal with the government as a whole as they deal with us as a whole.
Our idea is if we can unite them in Alberta, we want to then unite Canada and then the world, because then they're stronger united as one.
Stephanie Massicott, CTV News, Brockett.
And the seminar concludes with a community talent show and dance, giving the youth the opportunity to showcase their skills. Dory Rossiter, we've got some flurries, some showers, and even some sun over the next several days.
We really do. It's another forecast of variety of items as far as the weather goes, and that's certainly the case today. We started off with lots of sunshine this morning, and then, as we said last night, right around the noon hour, we were going to get a shower-flurry combination. That's exactly what happened, and now we have cloudy skies this afternoon. But we've got more of that mixed bag of some sun, some cloud, and some precipitation. So I'll tell you all about it in a couple of minutes.
Thanks, Dory. Well, the Redford government is on the defensive today, responding to allegations of substandard care, even abuse in long-term care facilities.
The first culvert out of town would be a safer place to live.
Beverly Monroe lives in the Covenant Health Long-Term Care Center at the Edmonton General Hospital. She says life there is miserable, with staff manhandling elderly and ill patients. Monroe says 3 months ago, staff ripped her earlobe while undressing her. She says they took too long to treat the wound and her ear will now be permanently disfigured. She's also exposing other problems at the facility, including leaking roofs and broken elevators. But she says the worst is the rough and disrespectful physical treatment patients face from caregivers. The province confirms it is reviewing the current cap on long-term care costs.
I have no difficulty, Mr. Speaker, in conceding that it is one of the older long-term care facilities in Alberta.
I'm certainly very concerned about the fact that anyone might be living in difficult circumstances because, Mr. Speaker, in this province it's not necessary.
The cap on long-term care costs limits the amount that the province will pay for a patient's long-term care. Critics say it makes it difficult, if not impossible, to provide quality care for that price. Lethbridge West NDP candidate Shannon Phillips says the allegations of substandard care can be traced back to the province's attempts to privatize areas of health care in order to save money. Phillips says it's time for the Redford government to live up to the promises to make seniors care a top priority and stop trying to save money at the cost of seniors care.
We live in a very wealthy province. We need to be investing in public long-term care, not investing in private for-profit facilities, which is where our taxpayers' dollars are currently going. And we also need to be looking at other options in terms of expanding Medicare rather than raising user fees for long-term care, as Alison Redford has proposed.
Despite being told there would be no new taxes or tax increases in the provincial budget, Lethbridge homeowners are going to see a tax hike. The average property tax bill is going up as much as $120 instead of the expected $53 increase. That's because the Conservative government decided to boost its education levy, which is collected by the city. Now, Alberta landowners upset with how the province takes over their land will soon be able to make their concerns known through a property rights advocate. The province is introducing legislation this week to create the advocate job. Alberta's Environment Minister says it's because of the feedback they heard in open houses held in 10 communities. Critics say the announcement is pre-election window dressing. The Lethbridge Airport is receiving over $200,000 in funding from Ottawa. The money will be used towards the purchase of a new runway sweeper for the Lethbridge Airport. Ottawa's Airport Capital Improvement Assistance Program goes towards funding airport safety programs. The new sweeper is a much-needed upgrade from the current machine that dates back to 1962. County Reeve Lorne Hickey says without the federal government's funding, the Lethbridge County Airport would probably be closed. He says the latest cash infusion is vital and timely.
Looking down the road, of course, we'll have to be replacing some of the trucks and the other snow plowing equipment because it's getting up in age there too as well. So it's just a matter of, it doesn't get used in a lot of hours, but some of the age of some of the other equipment is starting to add up as well.
Member of Parliament Jim Hillier made the announcement today. He says the upgrades are vital for safety of local travelers as well as the continued economic development of the city of Lethbridge. Well, when Elton John tickets went on sale earlier this month, the concert became the fastest sellout in Lethbridge history. Within hours, scalpers had posted tickets online, some hoping to make a big profit. If you weren't able to get tickets, there still may be a way for you to go while helping to support a great cause. Kayla Carr explains.
Daryl Kenna is one of the lucky ones. He managed to purchase 8 tickets for Elton John's April 24th show in Lethbridge, but he isn't keeping them for himself.
We got the tickets, and then what we decided is obviously there's a tremendous demand from the people we know, and so we can just envision a tremendous amount of our friends asking for the tickets, but we thought a better idea would be to take the tickets and donate them to the Gord Laurie Foundation.
The Gord Laurie Foundation received its namesake from Kenna's former accounting colleague, Gord Laurie. He passed away from cancer last March. His staff decided to create the foundation so they could give back to the community and organizations that he used to support.
We wanted to just go to individual people or organizations and try to empower them. So we don't really have anything designed right now. What we're doing is just going to start taking applications in. We have Gord's daughter sitting on the committee, and then we're really just going to sort of look across the table at each other and say, would this be where Gord would want it?
There are 8 tickets in total, 3 pairs on the floor and 1 in the upper level. The tickets are being sold by silent auction. 100% of the proceeds will go to the Gord Laurie Foundation.
So we thought, as opposed to these scalpers where they put the money in the pocket, this would be a great way to get the money back into the community. It's consistent with the way Gord was. He was a very humble guy, a well-respected guy in the community, and I think that he would have wanted this to sort of continue and keep touching the lives of people we come in contact with.
Kenna says the group doesn't have a goal in mind, but they're hoping to be able to split the money they raise between 2 or 3 community organizations. The silent auction will wrap up April 1st. Kayla Carr, CTV News, Lethbridge.
You can place your bid for the silent auction by visiting the Laurie, Kenna and Associates Financial Services office. They're located at 2527 Fairway Road South, or you can also call them at 403-320-7055. And speaking of the markets, or speaking of numbers rather, here are the day's closing markets.